Are you on the 16th day of November in the year of our Lord 2023? Almost at the end of this year. It seems like just yesterday I was, talking to us about making sure that we got our goals in alignment with our spirits for this year so that we could end this year better than or different than or changed than we entered the year. That's always a goal. It should always be a goal. So now we're at the end almost of 2023, and it would be great really to have a conversation with people to see what you set as your goals and what you were able to achieve. And it's very, very, very important that we never, ever, ever decide that just going along to get along. I didn't do my watch again. Going along to get along is okay, but because it's not. We were put here for a reason, for a season and a time. And God expects us to keep wanting to do better in our lives, do better things, have goals, and do better in our lives than we did. We're always supposed to be doing that. So I hope that you are still working on your stuff that you said at the beginning of the year, but also thinking about how you're going to add to your list of self improvement goals for 2024 coming up. Those of you who live in Ohio, we thank you for voting last week in our November election. We voted yes for issue one, which is important because it wasn't just about abortion, it was about saving the rights of us as people. When they wrote We the People, I've been thinking about this a lot. Our government, our so called democracy, has been a model for democracies around the world, and it's been held up. People have emulated what they thought we were. And we've benefited from that. We've gained the stature, but with that we the people thing, that we have, people have latched onto, all men are created equal, yada yada yada, um, is not who we are. It's not who we've ever been. We the people meant we, these white men who are writing this document. That's who we the people are. So it was never an all inclusive term. Um, so when you think about it and you think about what's going on right now, the people who are in power, who are trying to hold on to power, are just trying to do what the Constitution really set them out to do. But we are the people. We are the people. And people are angry, or scared, or insecure because this is not a white nation, which the founders wanted it to be. I remember doing the research for my book where I read that Benjamin Franklin at that time thought that Germans were too swarthy. They weren't white enough. This whole thing with whiteness is to be a white nation formed by white people for white people. So that's where we have been. So you have to pay attention to what's going on. And I know that lots of times you just don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it, but I pay attention to what's going on. And I'm not sure if you paid attention this week to what the former president said, but he used some language that Adolf Hitler used. And let me just back into this by saying that right before the 2016 election, my spirit was uneasy. And I always say that my spirit never lies to me. My spirit was uneasy. So we went to Germany. My brother lives there. And of all the places we went, I wanted to visit the concentration camps, a concentration camp. I wanted to go into the museums and see what in the world happened, how did a so-called democracy fall to a dictator, and all of it just made my skin crawl. But there are some words that Adolf Hitler said in his book Mein Kampf that Mr. the former president said this week, and I need for you to pay attention to that. He said, "quote, we pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country, that lie and steal and cheat on elections." I had to breathe on that one because they're the ones that are lying and stealing and cheating. So I just had to say, okay, deep breath, Susan, keep reading because you got to know what's being said. And he said, they'll do anything, whether legally or illegally, to destroy America and to destroy the American dream. And then he said, the threat from outside forces is far less sinister, dangerous, and grave than the threat from within. Our threat is from within, because if you have a capable, competent, smart, tough leader, Russia, China, North Korea, they're not going to want to play with us. And he's looking for vengeance. He's looking, he calls himself a very proud election denier, and criticized his legal entanglements, once again attacking the judge in the New York civil trial that is threatening his fortunes. So we need to pay attention to what's going on. That language, everybody knows that when somebody tells you who they are, shows you who they are, you got to believe them. You got to pay attention. You got to pay attention. And you got to know that what's at stake are your basic rights, those rights that are found in the Bill of Rights, your freedom of press, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, all of that. And I think a lot of people think that if the former president wins, which just galls me that a man with that many indictments can't even run for president. This whole Trump era has just exposed to me the weakness of the American political system. But that's a whole nother thing. But you have to understand, a lot of people think that if the MAGAs win, that it won't affect them. But let me tell you, when authoritarians get into power, they will mute and get out anybody and everybody that they think are opposing them. You're not allowed to criticize them. It's just an awful way to live. You got to understand that that's what's at stake. You got to understand that if you are a book lover like me, you might have to witness the burning of books. They've already done it some places. You have to understand where we are. And with that in mind, make sure that you're registered to vote and make sure that you get other people registered to vote, because the only thing that's going to save us at this point is voting. Massive and massive and massive numbers of people going out to vote. Somebody's going to say, well, we just got done with an election. Yeah, and now we have to get back into the car and get in the driver's seat and continue to register people to vote, to check on our own status, and to tell people what is at stake. I don't want to live in an authoritarian government. I don't want that. And it just frightens me to know that the absolute power that they're seeking will be bad for everybody except that very small group of wealthy white people, primarily white people, who are pledged total loyalty to this man who wants total control over our lives. It just makes me mad when I think about it. He is not God. We have one God, and that God is not named Mr. Trump, and God is not named MAGA, and God is not named Steve Bannon. God is not named any of that. This is about us treasuring our rights and treasuring the rights of all people. So I just needed to say that, because that quote from him this week really bothered me, and it just brought up that, or I can't say brought it up because it's always there, but kind of woke it up a little bit to remind us to pay attention to what's going on. So welcome, welcome, welcome. You always have to hear my rant on Thursday mornings. We do this because I wrote this book called Rest for the Justice Seeking Soul. And it's meditations designed to help people or encourage people who are doing social justice work. And so I'm thanking you who have purchased it. I am hoping some of you will purchase it for presents. I really want to do a volume 2 because, as you know, I write these meditations every single Tuesday and send them out. And if you want to be on that list, you should email me at crazyfaith2019@gmail.com, and I will put your name on. We have gotten several people who have asked to be put on, and I sure do put it on. So that's why we're here today, because I do this reading. But I'm not reading from the book today. I'm reading from the meditation. I'm reading the meditation that I did this week for my weekly sharing. And it's called Blessed Are the Cracked. Blessed are the cracked. Blessed are the cracked, for they let in the light. That's a quote from the late Groucho Marx, who said those things, which some think may have inspired Leonard Cohen's words in his poem, quote, "There is a crack in everything. That is how the light gets in," end quote. The words made me think. All of us as humans are imperfect and therefore cracked. And if Marx's words are true, we should be getting doses of light every day because we're cracked. And those doses of light are a gift from God that makes us able to see ourselves for what and who we are. But something is blocking the light that our cracks make room for. Something in us works hard to keep the light out. How dare anything or anyone disrupt our ways of thinking and living and believing? We don't want to see ourselves for who we are. We are familiar with ourselves. We do not know ourselves intimately because we don't want to. Intimate knowledge of self is painful to live with. We rest ourselves in what we would like to be or who we would like to be and leave our true selves as hidden as possible. So, in spite of the function and the advantage of being cracked, doesn't it sound weird? The advantage of being cracked, we block the light, which comes from God, from getting inside of us. I heard Dr. Greg Carr on Sirius Radio tell a story about an encounter he had with a man in a Panera. He was in Washington, D.C. It was raining outside, and more people than normal were in that restaurant to keep warm and dry. So Dr. Carr noticed an unkempt black man getting a cup of coffee. On the floor beside him were a couple of crumpled $1 bills. Dr. Carr, who was getting his coffee as well, picked them up and asked the man if it was his money, and the man said yes, and added that he wished he had a few more dollars. So Dr. Carr reached into his back pocket and gave the man a few dollars, and then started a conversation with the man who by now had gotten his coffee. They were really having a good time. Yeah, you went to so and so. They were talking about HBCUs, and the man told Dr. Carr what HBCU his daughter had gone to, and they were just striking up a conversation and really talking genuinely person to person. Um, when the man mentioned a particular college, Dr. Carr said, "Yeah, I know that college, man. I know that college." The spirits, their spirits, intersected as they revealed a relationship, a commonality they had with each other and with a particular HBCU. And they laughed and they talked and they connected. While they were talking, a police officer walked up to them and told the man that he had to leave. Dr. Carr was curious, but the man told him not to worry and made his way toward the door and told the police officer on his way out to stay out of my business. When the man had left, Dr. Carr asked the officer if he had been called. Did somebody call you? The man had done nothing but purchase a cup of coffee. And the officer said yes, that he had been called and been told by the owner of the restaurant that the cup that the man had gotten for his coffee he had taken out of the trash. That was the reason he was asked to leave. Now, I don't know why he took it out of the trash. Sometimes when people are houseless, they don't have stable lives. They do things because they just do things. But that doesn't make them any less human. And getting a cup out of the trash can should not have been a reason to put this man out. He wouldn't do anything. He bought his coffee. There were any number of things the owner could have done other than call the police to put him out. As I'm talking about this, I guess what they were thinking is that if he got his cup out of the trash, that meant that he was trying not to pay for the coffee. But Dr. Carr gave him some money, gave him some cups, so he paid for his coffee anyway. That just hit me as I was talking to you. So there were any number of things the owner could have done other than call the police to put him out. He could have said, "Man, you want some coffee? I'll pay. Here, take this cup," and given him a clean cup, so or just paid for the cup of coffee himself, so that this man, a human being, wanted to stay warm and dry like everybody else, could get a cup of coffee and be comforted for a few minutes on a bad and rainy day. But this owner, I think, was suffering from stuffed cracks. The cracks in his spirit were stuffed with himself. That light that might have gotten in might have given him eyes to see the man as a human being in need, a person who had a history, who had a family, who had a story to tell, and a person who had worth in spite of not having a home. But the stuffed cracks kept God out. Letting the light into our cracks helps us to be the humans that God desires us to be. Letting the light into our cracks helps expose and reveal the parts of ourselves on which we need to work. Letting the light into our cracks makes us able to lose our fear of ourselves and embrace ourselves, flaws and all, realizing that with the light that comes from God, we are always under construction. The man left the Panera that day. He went outside into the rain. It makes me just get cold just thinking about it. Wearing a torn T-shirt, but holding his cup of hot coffee that he was able to get and pay for because one person let the light into his cracks while another person refused to take the stuffing out of his. We are all cracked, and there is enough light for all of us to be warmed and healed and to be more like God. In our cracked states, we are blessed. We are blessed if we let the light in. Amen and amen. That I don't know, meditation did something to me. We at Crazy Faith Ministries, we collect socks and distribute them to those who are houseless. I can't imagine when you go to some of these communities and you see where they live out in the cold and the elements. Um, they're out there and they live that way, or they live in their cars. I cannot fathom. I cannot fathom having to live like that. So we collect socks because one of the things that's the most asked for item of people who are without homes, and their feet are always wet. They're on their feet all of the time, and their feet are always wet, and they get trench foot. I just can't get that image out of my mind. I read what trench foot is, and it is horrible that in these United States, where all people are supposedly created equal, that we have people walking around in such need of such a vital and yet unattainable item. Socks. So if you ever want to be a part of our outreach ministry with Crazy Faith Ministries, again, Crazy Faith 2019 at gmail.com, be in touch with me. But when I read this, heard the story that Dr. Carr was relating about the man in the Panera, I thought, God, show me my cracks. What would I have done if I had seen that man standing there getting coffee and noticed money on the floor? Would I have gone? Would I have even started a conversation with him? God makes you that light that God lets shine into you, makes you see yourself for who you are, your words and your actions notwithstanding. We cannot pretend with God's light shining in us. So, just something to think about. Even when I'm thinking about it, I'm still trembling for that man going outside into the rain because he had dared uh, be poor and pick up a cup for his coffee out of the trash. My God in heaven, what? So, anyway, that is the meditation for today. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you will share it. I hope that you'll come back next week. Now, next Thursday is Thanksgiving, and I am going to do one of these on Thursday morning because I won't be in a hotel. I'll be here at my house. I won't, be someplace else. I hope that you'll tune in. We don't stay long. We just stay long to get a little teeny word, and we go on about our business. So come back next week. Know that I love you and appreciate you tuning in to these things on Thursday mornings. Tell somebody about them if you enjoy them, and be good. Take good care.